everybody, and welcome back to A Stellar Podcast. It's me, Random Reviewer, and I'm here, as usual, with the worst generation.
I have been here the whole entire time. I have not moved from this chair.
For the last 3 months. Sorry we took a quick hiatus, or a very, very long hiatus. Some of us had to move, others of us got quail, other of us accidentally set the work microwave on fire. But you know, mistakes happened, and so we fixed it. We're fine. Here we are.
Yes. I did not set the microwave on fire.
You know what? That's fine. I didn't say it was you. It was him. And so, continuing, welcome back to our podcast. We're very excited to have you all back. Today we're going to be talking about arachnophobia.
Which I do not have. So, spiders.
Spitters.
I remember watching the film because we watched it a couple months ago, and it was kind of fun to watch it again because I hadn't seen it since I was like 8.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think I've like completely forgotten the movie, but I know that you have an extreme amount of notes this time, so...
I always have this extreme amount of notes. So, Ian doesn't realize that most of the time, all of these notes are just inside my head. This is the first time that he's actually seen me put on paper all of the things that I say during these podcasts.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Not all of it gets in.
Mm-hmm.
But the good stuff does.
So, should we move on to the next slide, which I think is the news.
The news. Bum, ba, ba.
As of recording today, the drummer, Charlie Waits, I think that's correct, of the Rolling Stones, the drummer, Keith Richards has now outlived another celebrity.
Oh my God.
And
I didn't think that's where you were going with that.
Yep, it is. And he died today as of recording, which is... I did not see that coming at all.
That's sad.
It is. But, yep, I guess it is... You know times are going somewhere when a member of the Rolling Stones dies. Because I don't think that was ever possible.
Well, I mean, I guess he rolled over. I'm sorry.
They're rolling over. He rolled over in his grave because of that joke, dear.
Oh. It's fine. It's fine.
And also, literally all of America is on fire. 1/5 of America.
It's insane.
Is on fire. Alaska's got 2 fires. This is as of 10 o'clock.
On August 24th.
24th, according to... It's a government site for tracking wildfires. There's 2 in Alaska, 11 in California, 1 in Colorado, 20 in Idaho. Minnesota has 2. I thought it would be... if I was just snow in Minnesota. The weather is so messed up, the snow is on fire.
Oh no. This snow is on fire! Okay, God, I'm so sorry, Minnesota. We did not mean to dance on your pain like that.
It's Minnesota. And then Montana's got 22 fires. Nevada, surprisingly, has 1. I guess because it's just dirt. It's just sand.
The casinos.
Oregon, which I misspelled, or Oregon, has got 10 fires. South Dakota has 1. I feel like that's self-explanatory. Utah's got 2 fires, and then Washington, where we live, has 17, and Wyoming has 3.
Utah has 1 real fire. The other fire is on the Mormon church's ass. Because...
The other fire is just...
Just kidding. Okay.
The other fire is
Sorry
just
if
imaginary.
You're Mormon. Yeah, so here's a little PSA. Please, please, please don't play with fireworks. Don't do burning things. Don't do anything that can basically set more stuff on fire. The United States is very, very dry right now. A lot of places are having heat spells, including our state. Washington State is seeing 100-degree weather, which we have not seen very much before. And if you're unaware, a lot of people in the state don't have air conditioning because we just don't have that weather. And so it's very, very uncomfortable. Most of us haven't slept very well over the past couple of months because of this heat. So please make sure that you're safely putting out your cigarette butts. You're not parking on the grass. You're not lighting fireworks off in abandoned fields. You know, all that good stuff. Just be safe, be smart, and don't do gender reveals that are going to fucking light all of fucking California on fire.
I know. I was really hoping you weren't going to say anything about gender reveals, because that was going to be my joke. Can I just say, I feel like any parent who has done a gender reveal for their kid, like, that kid's gonna be trans. Like, I'm just gonna be...
Let's talk about gender reveals and how they're incredibly transphobic, also non-binary phobic. How about let's just talk about they're LGBTQIA phobic? How about just homophobic? How about, this is called arachnophobia. Do you want to talk about transphobia? Because that's what those represent. That's not even my rant for the day.
That's later.
This is your mini random rant.
Mini random rant.
Bold opinion, gender reveal parties are transphobic.
Yeah. I read an article about the lady who, like, more or less started
the trend.
And she publicly disowned gender reveal parties, but also what I think is kind of ironic and really funny is that her kid's gender fluent.
Good for them.
Yeah, and so she's like, because she said, I fucking hate where this went, because she's like, I just thought it was funny to do a white cake and it was pink on the inside, and then she's like, my kid's gender fluent. The one that I started gender reveal parties with is gender fluent. So she's like, well, that was pointless.
And in case you were unaware, both the Worst Generation and I are queer. Neither one of us has sort of shared our stories on this platform, and we probably won't for a little bit. But we are very, very, very supportive of LGBTQIA rights, women's rights, Black Lives Matter. Like, and if that isn't your stuff, then this podcast and this group probably isn't for you.
All four viewers just left the stream.
Well, I mean, Swam, if that's you, hey, dude.
God. You know, I have to say, there was that live stream that Last Robin did, and before you actually joined, I made a couple Ben Shapiro jokes, and and that's what caused us to receive death threats, and I felt like such a YouTuber because I had made Ben Shapiro jokes and then gotten death threats. So,
God. Anyways,
don't leave death threats in the comments.
That's really rude, you guys.
Anyways, moving on with another phobia, we have arachnophobia. And let's talk about the cast.
Let's talk about the cast. So for starters, a lot of these people actually ended up not going anywhere. Even though the movie was a pretty big success, a lot of these people just did not do things. So Jeff Daniels, who is our main character, did a lot. That's a household name. Most of you know who Jeff Daniels is. Most of you know who John Goodman is, who plays the exterminator. One of the kids plays his Garrett Ratliff. He actually is in a couple different Disney Channel shows, like the Mighty Ducks. He was in the Disney movies. You might have seen him. A lot of these other people you probably haven't really seen again. Kathy Kinney was actually a big comedian in the 90s, and she passed away. But so she was around during the time. A lot of these people don't do things now. So you probably saw this movie as a kid, but I bet you didn't see a lot of these characters again, except for the big names like Jeff Daniels and John Goodman.
The spider on the left here had a big acting career, right?
Yeah, Big Bob did have a big acting career.
Yeah, I guess I never really noticed, but yeah, like I don't really recognize anyone, like, with the exception of the obvious of who went on to have a stardom.
Yeah, I mean, some of these people did like indie films afterwards, and you can find them in things. Julian Sands, who played the Doctor, went and did like Warlock and Leaving Las Vegas after this. The last thing he was in was Crooked House in 2017, which was kind of like, didn't do super great.
It had a band foundation.
Oh, God. I walked into that one. Wow, you came up with that on the fly?
I did.
That was good.
Really
that was good. I like that one. That was good. Thank you. So some of these people you won't really find anywhere else, but I mean, and some of these people have actually passed away since then.
Yeah, I was gonna say this movie's actually like fairly old. Yeah, somebody's.
If you were born in 1990, you're 30 now. You're welcome.
Yay.
So, yeah. I mean, even some of, like, the kids didn't really do anything after this. But,
most of them followed in the path of Macaulay Culkin and just kind of was in one or two really big films and then went into an artsy film to try and break out and then just fell off the map.
Yeah, but I don't think any of these people sued their parents after that.
Oh. Or worked at Subway.
Oh my god. Okay, anyways.
Moving on.
So Big Bob on the left is actually the only bird-eating tarantula in the United States.
Cool.
He's not alive anymore. His lifespan was literally like 10 years, and this was in the 90s, so...
Oh, okay.
So he's not alive anymore, but at the time, and I think Steven Kutcher might have another bird-eating tarantula now, but there's only like one. So at the time, he was the only bird-eating tarantula in the United States.
Are they just illegal, or do you have to have...
They're very, very aggressive, and you have to have licenses. I know for a fact that the Smithsonian has a couple in their zoo right now, so I know there's more in the United States now, but at the time, that was the only one.
Okay.
Which is cool.
What about the little guy on the right?
That is an Avondale spider. That's the other live spider that you see in the movie.
Cool.
Yeah, and we'll go in more about that.
Next slide.
Moving right along. Hey, spider fucking. So
I like what's his name in the middle here? It's just like
Jeff Daniels.
Jeff Daniels. I've walked into something I didn't mean to.
Okay, let's talk about Arachnophobia. Okay, so the original movie, and we have to specify because they were making a remake that James Wan is remaking. And if that name sounds familiar to you, it's probably because you've seen Saw and The Conjuring. So this movie, so the James Wan version is probably going to be significantly more scarier than the original Arachnophobia. Mm-hmm. So the original was filmed by Frank Marshall, and this is actually his directorial debut. And so he had Steven Spielberg sign on to executive produce the film, but Steven Spielberg wouldn't do it unless John Goodman played the exterminator. That was one of his conditions. So I guess Steven Spielberg had worked with John Goodman in Always in 1989. And actually Frank Marshall had also, and so he immediately was like, sure, he can play Delbert, that's fine. But that was Steven Spielberg's stipulation of coming onto this movie, was that John Goodman was the exterminator.
Mm-hmm. Which is kind of funny because he's like not in the film at all. I remember him the most from my early watching of it, but like rewatching it, it's like he's only in for like 5 minutes altogether.
No, he's in for a little bit more, but he's actually more of the comic relief. Makes it like funny that it's supposed to be. Arachnophobia is supposed to be a thriller comedy,
which I can kind of understand, but like while watching it, I feel like it's not actually a comedy. I don't really find it that funny.
Yeah, I don't either. But anyways, this was the first movie released by Disney's Hollywood Pictures label, and it was produced by Amblin and by Tangled Web Productions. So...
ironic.
I know, right?
So...
I wonder what else they did after that.
Charlotte's Web.
Anyway... No, they didn't. The film centered on a newly discovered Venezuelan spider being transported to a small American town and producing a new species of deadly spiders, which began killing the town's residents. So a little bit of spider fucking.
A little bit.
Just a tiny, tiny bit.
A little bit. A little bit.
So
spiders. Yeah.
So the movie follows this doctor, and he moves from big city San Francisco into this small town. Not to be like a Steven Spielberg downer, but Jaws? No. Jaws but spiders? Question mark?
Is that a plot point in Jaws that I'm forgetting about?
Yeah, Martin Brody moved to the town, and he was afraid of the water because of the shark, the same way that Jeff Daniels' character, Dr. Jensen was afraid of spiders and he had to overcome it. It's literally like the same movie, but one's with spiders and one's with a shark.
Okay.
Anyways, not to say that it's still not a great movie, because I love both of them dearly. So Dr. Jennings moves to this tiny little American town, and he becomes the doctor there and moves into this barn with his house and his family and his kids, and he meets everybody. At the same time, this guy that died in Venezuela is sent back home because he was a photographer on this trip, and he gets transported with the spider that ends up mating with the house spider that creates the offshoot of all the deadly spiders.
I think we're forgetting about the subplot, which I'm going to call subplot, but it's also kind of the main plot where the old doctor doesn't want to retire, so now there's two competing doctors, and everyone's like, it doesn't really add that much other than to just kind of seem like it's trying to discredit the main character.
Yeah, no, that's all it's really doing. And then they call him Dr. Death because all his patients keep dying from the spiders.
No relation to, what's his name from the TV show, Dr. Death.
Anyway, and that's how interested in that ending I was. So then the old doctor dies, which it's like, dang, if you thought he wasn't the murderer before, I do now. I want to see the version of this movie where Dr. Jennings is up for trial for killing all these people.
He's not the one that, like, every time people go to the new doctor, who's, I'm forgetting his name, the main character.
Dr. Jennings?
Yeah, Dr. Jennings. Every time someone goes to see him, their person dies. Until the doctor dies, the old doctor.
And then suddenly everyone just stops dying?
No, more people die. Oh, I get. No, wait. There's a couple more people that die after he dies.
Right, but they do. But like, there's a weird, like, there's a lull. There's a stop for a second. It's like the spiders just like gave up, and I'm like, dang, this really looks like Dr. Jennings murdered a bunch of people. But they don't talk about it, which is fine. It's fine. Whatever. It's fine. So, and also another character we have to talk about is Sheriff Parsons, who has absolutely no purpose other than being a bully.
Yeah.
He has like no purpose. He doesn't have any real power. He doesn't really do anything to move the plot forward. Doesn't really help with anything. And then he just like disappears at the end of the movie. You just don't see him anymore. Like, he leaves the barn to go back to the morgue to like get Dr. Jennings and tell him. And then you just don't see him again. And it was like, what the heck? And so it turns out, I found out that Parson was killed by the spiders, and his death scene was dropped from the film. In the scene, he's driving to like the mortuary, and there's a spider in his car, and it bites him, and he crashes his car and died. And so it was supposed to be an ending for like, because we didn't like the character or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then it was like, but that's like even more insulting because it didn't make it into the movie.
No one cared enough to put it in the movie.
Yeah, it wasn't like, deemed important enough to be shown.
His character death was just
and actually, and the irony is that has nothing to do with Pankin, who is the actor, who apparently is a really nice person and great to work with. Mm-hmm. Like, his character is like really just kind of an ass, but he's apparently a really nice dude.
It seems to be a lot of the villains are actually just like really nice people, but...
Looking at you, Brad Dourif. And I do have an appreciation for you, Brad Dourif, and if you ever find this podcast, I would sincerely love an autograph. Thank you.
Or if you're Brad Dourif's daughter.
Oh my god. If you're Brad Dourif's daughter, I would also take a autograph. Maybe a signed Chucky doll, signed wheelchair. I'll take it.
A whole wheelchair in the corner of the house, but...
If you think for 1 second that I would not hook that up so that it is haunting people, then you're wrong.
Do we need to be on this slide, or should we move to the next slide?
I would like to point out that if there was a spider and I burned the house down, that I would actually do that.
I'd be very sad. But I'd understand.
Uh-huh. Why would you be sad? You'd be fine.
Because the house would be gone.
Don't worry about it. It's fine. I'll just come live with you afterwards.
Okay. Next slide. What happens if the next slide... Okay, next slide. I have not seen the Barbie. World of Barbie coloring book.
It's one of the coloring books that was in the movie.
Oh.
And we're going to talk about production. Okay, so this is actually, I do want to say, so according to experts, spiders are not interested in humans and are only like peripherally aware of our existence. Like, unlike mosquitoes and stuff, they don't feed on blood, and they're way more likely to bite like other spiders or other insects. So they only tend to like bite humans when they feel threatened or have no choice but to like defend themselves. So like, you know, when sometimes you wake up with a spider bite, it's probably because you rolled over on it or something like that.
They do not care about your existence unless it directly threatens them.
Yeah, kind of like that. And so
They're like Endermen in Minecraft.
yeah, so I just want to point out that like the aggressiveness of these spiders, or like they actively seek out people to like attack and kill and drain their blood, that's not real. There isn't a spider that'll do that. Although, if a spider does bite you, it won't kill you. So for like, there are very few medically dangerous spiders, even in North America, that are like that'll seriously hurt you. Even like the black widow won't kill you. But if you are bitten, there are a lot of quick medical remedies. Most hospitals do have anti-venom. So the important thing is that if you're not sure what bit you, just get to the hospital as fast as you can and explain. If you do know what bit you or you saw any markings, it's important to sort of take that to your doctor. If at all possible, if you can safely catch the specimen that bit you and take it with you, that's also something you can try to do.
Make sure you do tell the nurse about it, because I've heard a story about someone that got bit by a rattlesnake and they took the rattlesnake with them and they put it in a cup, but they didn't tell anyone. So then the nurse was like, "Oh, what's this?" And a rattlesnake was just in there.
That is a forbidden snake in a can.
Forbidden snake in a can.
Oh my god. There's a snake in my boot, but it's a rattlesnake. Okay. So, there are even medicinal properties to certain types of spider venom. So spider milking is when they actually milk fangs of spiders to get the venom out to create medicine. And so there are certain venoms that can help with muscular dystrophy, Alzheimer's disease, and even erectile dysfunction.
Spiders.
So there's your little spider tidbit. Basically, spiders, you don't need to fear that they're going to come after and get you like they do in the movie, because they won't.
But you're still going to ask me to remove all the spiders or kill it when in the room.
Absolutely. If they come into this house, the punishment is death.
Even though you know that they will not hurt you.
The punishment is death.
Moving on.
So let's talk about the production a little bit. Now that our little spider fun facts are a little done. So the production of this movie required two different types of spiders. We have the bird-eating tarantula, which spans like 11 inches with its leg span. So this spider's at least a foot big. And the other one is a avalon spider from New Zealand. So the filmmakers found a bird-eating tarantula native to the Amazon. There was only one spider in the U.S. at the time, and Frank Marshall named the spider Big Bob after director Robert Zemeckis. So the production team painted purple stripes on the back of Big Bob and added a prosthetic abdomen to, quote, give him greater bulk.
This is so Steven Spielberg. Like, this is like the equivalent.
It's not scary enough.
Yeah, no, this is the equivalent of getting a real shark and trying to have the makeup artist paint bullet holes on the side of the shark.
Or when he looked at the velociraptors and was like, cool. Make it bigger.
Make it bigger.
So
scarier.
I just want to point out that the production team painted purple stripes. What do you mean the production team painted purple stripes? I would not stick my hand anywhere near that bitch. Are you kidding me? And added it as prosthetic abdomen? How did that fitting go? Who's still missing a finger? This thing eat birds. You think it won't eat your hand? Okay. So
it's just a slightly bigger bird connected to a bunch of bigger birds.
Yeah, it's fine. Absolutely not.
Nom nom nom.
Okay, so the small spiders used in the film were Avondale, as we said, from New Zealand, and they were provided by Landcare Research in Auckland. Despite their fierce appearance, this spider is actually a docile member of crab family, It's more like a crab than it is a spider. And it's in fact harmless to humans.
Unless they're feeling crabby.
Oh my God. They were not allowed back in New Zealand for quarantine reasons. Trigger warning for quarantine reasons. And, I'm sorry. That's a terrible, terrible joke. This is in the 90s, so there wasn't a pandemic. It was not because of COVID. And the spiders the Avondale spiders that were from New Zealand were actually also handled by Stephen R. Kutcher, who handled Big Bob. That was his tarantula.
Okay.
So one of the things that was super important about this production was the safety of the spiders. So, for example, there's a lot of scenes where you see them being stepped on, them being squished, them being hit. So, for example, John Goodman sprays an arachnid with insecticide and then squashes it with his boot. So, first, a dummy spider was sprayed. It wasn't a real one. And then John Goodman wore special boots that had a hole in it. And so, when he would squash the spider, he would just push the hole over the spider and it would just curl up inside and wait for the next take. Then in post, they took potato chips and crushed them to make the sound of the crushing spider.
I love that. Good Foley artists.
So, and for Big Bob, Big Bob is apparently an incredibly dangerous spider to work with because he's so aggressive. He couldn't be handled by anyone other than Mr. Kutcher. So all that meant every time that you see the real tarantula, it's actually him handling it. It's not Jeff Daniels. It's not any of the actors that's there.
How many times did he get bit?
It did not give me a count.
I'm sure.
But if you look in the picture, it looks like he's wearing a glove.
Yeah.
Of some kind.
He's also wearing shorts.
Well, maybe he doesn't jump. I don't know. So Big Bob also had a stunt double. There was a animatronic robotic spider that was built by none other than Jamie Hyneman from the Mythbusters before he was a Mythbuster, when he still had his special effects shop. So he built and was on set with Big Bob. Isn't that crazy?
That is. Hey, he built Big Bob.
He built Big Bob before he went on to be on Mythbusters with none other than Adam Savage.
The superior Mythbuster.
I'm sorry?
Our next slide?
I'm sorry.
Next slide.
No.
Are we done with this slide?
No.
Okay. So what's next?
Death. Just kidding. Okay.
By spiders.
So Frank Marshall saved the final scene of the movie where there's that giant fight with them throwing wine bottles in the wine cellar for actually the very end of shooting, when there was no other actors on set. So nobody saw it until when the movie premiered, except for editors. And so it took 2 weeks of 13-hour days to shoot. And Jeff Daniels spent 2 of those days, so 26 hours, pinned under a 250-pound wine rack, hurling bottles at wine at Big Bob while under strict instructions to not hit the spider. And in fact, always miss it by 3 feet or more.
Oh my God.
And if you don't think that's terrifying, there's something called the Spider Olympics. Are you ready?
Is that how far they jump?
No. To find the right arachnid for the job that Frank Marshall wanted for his spider movie, he actually evaluated a number of species of spiders. So he pitted them against each other, including in running and through speed, climbing agility, reaction to heat and cold. And apparently the harmless but sinister looking huntsman native to Australia, that is the Avondale, is the one that got picked because did the best. It was the scariest looking. It ran the fastest because it thought it was creepier, and that it did better to heat and cold. So wolf spiders were also one of the ones, and other tarantulas were one of the other ones that were put through it. And I'm like, I'm sorry. If there was a day on set where they're like, okay, we're testing these 10 different spiders together, I'd be like, peace. I quit. I'm done.
Which one do you think is scarier?
All of them. Next question. Ashley, just lifts one up. Is this one scarier or that one? I go home now.
It's just a picture of Pam. I see no difference in this picture.
They're the same picture.
They are the same
They're
picture.
the same picture. Alrighty. And so here's a crazy thing. So Frank Marshall he joked that he had to get all of the Avondale spiders' little passports from New Zealand. But it was actually a ton of paperwork and a crazy amount of work to have them bring 300 of the spiders to the U.S. for filming. And that was just the initial shipment. They got 300 more spiders every 2 weeks.
Did they just die, or did they just have,
It doesn't tell me. I wonder if they just were worried about overusing them and probably sent them somewhere else. Because they do say that none of the spiders were harmed. Like, nobody died during the making of this. But I bet it was just like, it's either natural causes or they just didn't want to keep
Thrive as spiders.
Well, because I mean, think about it. If you spray a spider 3 times and then spray it like 6 more times, it's not going to do as well as a spider that only gets sprayed once. So I bet they just keep like flittering them through. Which still is, Ashley, can you come sign for this package of 300 live spiders? The what?
It's in one of those boxes that just says like live animals, and you're like, what the fuck is going on here?
I just cut it open. 300 spiders.
They all opened up in
that is a
transport, and
freaking nightmare.
Came out.
Oh god. I can feel them.
They said no spiders were harmed in the making of that movie, but I'm sure 1 or 2 probably did.
You know, I think on purpose is probably.
Yeah. You know, I'm sure if a camera guy accidentally stepped on one once or twice.
I choose not to think about it because it still makes me feel bad, even though I definitely, if they handed me a box of spiders, would have yeeted that thing across the warehouse. You think for 1 second I wouldn't have lit that on fire. So here's a fun fact. Can you train a spider?
Sure.
No.
I mean, I figured they don't quite have the mental capacity to understand. Oh gosh. Like a reward system.
Now roll over, Big Bob. Then you get the cricket. Then you get the little parakeet. Just kidding. Okay.
We'll work our way up. If you're
So,
really
no,
good,
you can't
get a duck.
Oh my god, no. Not a duck.
If you work really hard, you'll get my middle finger.
My god, stop it. So, but you can direct them by other means. So, for example, they disliked Lemon Pledge specifically. Lemon Pledge cleaner. So Kutcher would spray it around the set to keep them from wandering off because they didn't like the way that I don't know if it felt, it smelled.
It's probably the acidity.
And also, like, hot air bothered them, so they had they had blow dryers that would, like, they would just, like, had them on so the spiders wouldn't wander away from where they were supposed to be.
And blow dry the spider a bit so it walks to the right instead of going to the left again.
And so with the spiders, what they would do is they would film them just like walking. They would just release them and sort of film them and try to work it in. But sometimes they would need them to do specific motions. So they were gently pulled on thin leashes attached to their bellies with a dab of wax. Or they would have a dab of wax and a magnet on their tummy. And they would use a metal plate controlled via electromagnets underneath them, moving them.
The poor spiders have no idea what's happening.
Yeah, so any scene involving the spiders took hours to film and usually was without other cast members being there.
That makes sense.
I mean...
You're probably on set for like 3 days doing nothing but like hoping the spider like walks this way.
Oh my god.
Could you imagine like just being like, what'd you do today? I filmed these shades for 3 hours, hoping a spider would just happen to walk on it.
Woo woo. Isn't that fun? Imagine being like, yes, he did it, and then not having hit record. Oof. Rough day.
The director says lens cap.
Lens. No.
Next slide.
Next. That was the production. Basically, this movie took way longer to film than it was supposed to, but I think they did a good job since nobody was hurt, and it was all practical. None of this was animated, which was super cool.
Yeah, and I feel like it helps the film hold up better over time.
Yeah, like it aged really well. Like we watched this in 21. I know what year it is. It's fine. And it was still scary. It didn't seem super fake. It didn't seem sort of...
Yeah, no,
I don't know, gross.
Like, I'm gonna use something that I'm more familiar with, but like, today, I watched the movie Bad Moon, which is just a werewolf and a dog fighting out for like an hour and a half. It's not that great, but the werewolf
It's a bad movie.
It is a bad movie called Bad Moon, sorry. And I think while it lacks a good story, it's actually got really, really good practical effects. And I'm bringing that up because even though there's the transformation scene looks terrible because they CGI it, and it's the only time that there's CGI, and it just looks like someone's first year in Photoshop was just stretching out an image and called it good.
Oof.
But I'm bringing that up because the werewolf looks good throughout the whole thing because it's practical effects, and that's making me think of the 2018 Wolfman, where they CGI him, and it's CGI for the whole time, and it just aged terribly, and it's just not a good movie because it looks terrible.
Yeah.
So, practical effects are generally the better way to go if you want it to age well.
Yes.
So.
Always down for a practical effect.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, to the next slide, which we were definitely going to show, and I didn't just mess up. Black Widow plus...
That's a household spider.
Oh.
Plus a bird tarantula equals a very poisonous, small, aggressive tarantula. Mm-hmm. Could this happen in real life?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. I'm guessing that in this case, the spiders are too genetically different.
Yeah.
To create.
No, the big spider would have eaten the small one, and they're too. Especially, there's no way for them to have procreated it in the way that they did in the movie. It just wouldn't happen. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that like, not only the bird, so the tarantula was from Venezuela, which is very warm, and it wouldn't have been able to adjust to our climate. It probably would have died. Mm-hmm. And so that's a whole other thing. But I guess the bigger question is, can you get from a tiny house spider and a giant tarantula a poisonous, aggressive, small spider? And the answer is yes, you can. But through millions of years of evolution.
That was kind of my thought, that it's just not gonna... So the
Arachnophobia the movie will never happen. It's just genetically impossible. You cannot get two spiders that are that significantly sized differently to mate. There's no way that'll happen. Mm-hmm. Not only that, spiders are incredibly aggressive. They're aggressive towards each other. They're aggressive towards other insects. So if that giant tarantula had saw that small little house spider, it would have just killed it or ran away from it. Also, in the movie, the tarantulas have a hive mind. There's no queen. There's no that tarantula. No.
Spiders don't think.
They're solitary creatures. They don't get along. When bird-eating tarantulas mate, what happens is that the female and the male will have sex, and then the male will then run away from the female, and the female lets him leave, and about 3 months later, the male just dies. And then the female lays an egg sac that's about the size of a tennis ball and keeps going.
Cool.
So, no, this wouldn't happen.
Spiders, they're so weird.
Just don't like them.
They're big. That one is the size of a dinner plate, and it scares me.
You still have to kill the spiders.
Okay. Next slide?
Moving on.
What's the next slide? Oh, is there fan art of this movie?
No.
Is there fan fiction of this movie?
No.
Is there anything?
Yeah, there's the spider picture that you made.
3 minutes before we started recording.
There's the Brandon Ferris zebra tarantula spider video that I adore.
Spitter.
No, there isn't any fan fiction about this movie. There isn't fan art, anything like that. But it's also not a very... I mean, we have seen this as kids. Like, any person I've met that has a fear of spiders has for some reason seen this movie.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of one of those movies where it's kind of like Jaws. A fair amount of people have seen it.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people of younger than us have seen it, but I know that I feel like most people older than us have definitely seen this movie. So.
No, I am definitely in the boat of my dad showed this to me when I was way too young, and this definitely heavily contributed to my fear of spiders. But to be 100% honest, I'm pretty sure I'm afraid of spiders because of Lord of the Rings.
This movie didn't really help, but it also didn't really change
No, I don't
too
think
much.
I don't think it caused it. But yeah, no. But because there's any fan fiction, here's some fun facts about arachnophobia. Not the movie, but the actual fear. Hypnotherapy is incredibly common for treatment of individuals suffering from arachnophobia. You can be hypnotized to not be afraid of spiders. How crazy is that?
I can't think of a joke entirely.
Do you think it works with like bees?
Probably.
Should we?
But it's probably expensive. If people don't know, I don't like bees. But bees also don't like me. So maybe it's a good fear to have. Bees just sting me for no reason. So maybe it's a good thing that I'm afraid of bees.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know. But you sure are a keeper. That was good.
That was.
You don't think it was good?
I think you're gonna be a keeper.
No. You can't just use my joke and add an extra word to it to make it...
Yeah.
Oh my god. In order
Quality content.
10 out of 10. Please subscribe. Okay. In order to be diagnosed with a severe phobia, it has to interfere with your daily life and prevent you from doing tasks normally. So for example, if I had to pee and there was a spider in the bathroom, would I go pee? No, I would not.
I feel like I know a lot of people who have done that too, who would do that.
Yeah, no, I feel like arachnophobia is way more common than I don't think about it very often. Be like, oh, you're just afraid of spiders, but like, it's a severe phobia if it interferes with your day. I have a coworker who was so afraid of spiders that she has to stop working until we kill the spider.
No.
And it's like, yeah, but I won't go kill it for her. I'll be like, nope.
Someone else do it.
Yeah, no, basically. So, fun fact number 3, many people with arachnophobia will enter a room and immediately search it to see if there are any spiders. If there happens to be a spider, they will monitor it closely as it maneuvers throughout the room. This is true. I do this all the time. Actually, when we first started recording, because we will get spiders into here sometime, I definitely did that like every single time I came in this room until I made you start looking for spiders as part of your cleaning routine.
Yeah. Spitters.
It freaked me out so much. Yeah. Like in my car or anything like that, I do that.
Mm-hmm.
So actually arachnophobia dates back thousands of years, as many ancient civilizations viewed them as contamination of water and food. Therefore, a severe fear developed.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. It's ingrained in us, so that would explain why it's fairly common, you know.
It feels like it's like a root fear, you know, like the same way some people are afraid of snakes because they're like poison. Like it's like there's this inner fear. It comes from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5, there are some civilizations that believe spiders were the sole cause of the bubonic plague. Okay, that one,
yeah.
I still hold rats accountable, but it's fine. It's fine.
You
it's
know,
no big deal.
They didn't understand science. They just blamed anything.
It had 8 legs and it looked
was
scary.
bad
It's
air.
awful.
It was bad air.
Oh my god. Number 6, a phobia is mostly developed from a trauma or frightening experience that occurred during early childhood. I am willing to bet 90% of people with arachnophobia have it because they had a dick older sibling who dangled a spider over their face.
Probably.
I guarantee. And also, you know exactly who you are, and you know exactly what you did, and I still think you're a dick for dangling that spider over my face. Number 7, virtual reality is commonly used to help treat phobias, as psychiatrists will use VR glasses and VR gloves to simulate the idea of a spider crawling on a patient until they are able to overcome their phobia.
I know that there's...
Abso-fucking-lutely not.
I know that there's a game where it's like a simulator, and they have like it's like a fear thing. It is years and years old, and like they have a spider walk up and then like crawl around, and like it's got really good audio. But the one that I'm thinking of more is I forget it's like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, but it's like you play as the kids trying to put things together, and they have spiders.
Nope.
And
No.
There's a setting that says if you're arachnophobic, and it just removes the legs of the spider.
What?
So it's just floating body.
That is like scarier.
Yeah, that was like what everyone was saying. They're like, I don't think this helps with my arachnophobia. I think this just makes it creepier.
Yeah, no. I would punch a therapist and psychiatrist really fast if I for 1 second thought there was a spider on me.
Yeah.
Like when Dr. Zazu used to have that My Extreme Animal Fear show, I used to watch it like crazy. And anytime it was a spider episode, I was like, I would not do any of this.
Yeah. That was a weird show.
I would rather die than hold a spider. I worked at a pet store. Not to mention that I'm actually allergic to tarantula hairs, so I do have a genuine reason to be fearful.
I like how you're already afraid of spiders, and then it turns out you're allergic to a lot of the spiders.
That day sucked so bad. That was the worst day. It just sucked. Not a fun day. 10 out of 10, don't recommend being terrified of a tarantula and then having it run up your arm and have you screaming, freaking out. Have the tarantula run back in its cage, all smug as a rug, and you look down and you just have hives all over your arm.
I like how you could probably, if you're ever in the hospital and they're like, they ask the questions like, what are you allergic to? And you could just be like, penicillin, coconut, tarantula. That's such a conversation starter. I'm allergic to tarantulas. How do you know that?
Well, I tried to eat one like in the Brandon Ferris video. Just kidding, no. Because I worked at a pet store and it touched me. Actually, Big Bob, the beard-eating tarantula they had, could shoot his hairs. And they're an irritant, so I would probably be very allergic to him as well.
Yeah.
Also, no! What do you mean shoot your hairs and it feels like a bee sting? Excuse you, sir.
Mm-hmm. And have you seen the pictures like after tarantulas do that, where they're just bald on their ass?
Keep your ass hairs to yourself. I don't want them.
They're just bald. It's really funny, and then they just walk around.
Yeah, so my rant was actually going to be about if a psychiatrist came near me with a VR headset, I would throat punch them. Hella fast. Mm-hmm. Excuse you. I am not allowing that shit. No.
Next slide.
Next slide
is
Silly Putty.
We have a new segment on this show called
Random's Deep Dive.
Random's Deep Dive into toys-ish.
It'll be just something random that is somewhat related, but also completely not related to the movie. So Silly Putty was one of the toys that you see for like half a second in the movie. So that's what the deep dive is on today. Silly Putty. So here I'm going to answer those age-old questions that you didn't know you had about Silly Putty. Silly Putty was invented by accident. So during World War II, engineer James Wright was working for the U.S. War Production Board, and he was trying to create an inexpensive substitute for synthetic rubber at a general lab in Connecticut when he dropped boric acid into silicone oil. So it was like whoopsie daisies, and he got a substance that was stretchier and bouncier than rubber with a weird added feature. When you flattened it against a newspaper or comic book, it picked up a perfect copy of the print. Wright's discovery turned out to be no better than the synthetic rubber that already existed. The government didn't want this nutty putty, is what they called it. But a few years later, businessman Peter Hodgson noticed that it was fun at a party when they were playing with it and using it on comic strips and stuff to be funny. And he renamed it Silly Putty, and he made it a toy, and he marketed it towards kids. And the reason that Silly Putty is in an egg, because that gets asked a lot, is because Silly Putty came out around Easter, and you could buy a bunch of plastic eggs for real cheap, and so that's why Silly Putty is in a bunch of eggs, because it was around Easter and you could buy them for cheap.
It's interesting how many things came out of like World War II just as like, oh, I guess this is something we gotta do. like, not to ruin it, but the Slinky, which we'll probably cover some other time, is like a very similar invention to Silly Putty. But I think what it was, like, the guy who made it, like, went up and was like, this is really cool. What the hell do I do with it? Because, you know, if you're trying to make rubber to hold its shape, this is kind of pointless. It's really... Could you imagine trying to make a tire out of Silly Putty?
No.
Did you ever take Silly Putty and then put it in the freezer?
So, we're getting to some of that. So, Silly Putty was actually one of the 20th century's most popular toys. And then people started becoming, like, practical with it. So, you can use it for picking up dirt and lint and sticking it to a wobbly leg to make the table more stable. Astronauts on the Apollo 8 mission even used the goo to keep their tools secure in zero gravity.
Oh, that makes sense.
And so, although Silly Putty is very stretchy and flexible, it also breaks cleanly, and it will shatter if hit with enough force. In 1989, a grad student at Alfred University in New York State dropped a 100-pound ball of Silly Putty from the roof of a campus building to see what would happen. Would it bounce, break, or just turn into a giant pancake? The massive ball dropped, bounced about 8 feet into the air, and then shattered when it hit the ground the second time. I refuse to believe that this was a science experiment and not that he was just drunk as a skunk and wanted to see what would happen if he dropped Silly Putty.
Yo, Professor, can I get a grade for this? Yeah, yeet!
You know, I'm testing.
I'm testing good old...
The velocity and... the
durability
and fluidity of Silly Putty, Professor. We could find other uses for this.
Do you think that they notified anyone before they threw it out the window, or
no? I think they just fucking took out the cheerleaders with them.
No one cares about the jocks.
I think it'd be really funny if you were just like in an English lecture that's really boring and you just like are staring there and you're trying really not to fall asleep, and out of the corner of the eye you see this giant ass ball of putty come down. You're like, what the and then
I kind of want to try it now.
And then you see it bounce up and you're like, what? And then it just like comes back down and you watch it shatter. And then your teacher goes, Bueller, has anyone seen Bueller? And then yeah, no, that's what I think happened.
The Greeks tried a lot of things, and they had created olive oil. Is that Silly Putty on the wall? Just an explosion of Silly Putty. They were picking up Silly Putty for ages, I bet.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, but it shattered cleanly, so... No, what they did was they... Also, the government really did call it Nutty Putty.
Yeah. What a bad name.
What a terrible name. But a great name for lube.
Jesus Christ.
I'm just saying.
Today's episode is brought to you by Jack Daniels, as I'm going to drink the whole entire thing right now.
Wow.
As I hold as Coca-Cola, which I don't have any Jack Daniels.
We're not sponsored.
Yet.
Anyways, that's it on Silly Putty.
That's it on Silly Putty?
That is it on Silly Putty.
So I guess that means that we've come to the end of the video.
Woot woot.
Or audio.
Podcast.
Woohoo. Yes, follow Random Reviewer on Instagram at Random Reviewer Pods, and on Twitter at Random Reviewer 6. Follow me on Twitter, and subscribe to The Worst Generation at YouTube.
Also, don't forget to subscribe to Random Reviewer and hit that like button, leave us a comment, share this video with your friends. Tell us what you want to see or don't want to see anymore. Tell us if you like segments or we should add something, take away something. We're very open to listening, although sometimes we just go, nah.
Generally, we go, yeah, no.
It'll be fine. It'll be good.
Fine.
It'll be good. Next week, we are hoping to do Jaws because it is Shark Week.
Shark Week. Shark Week.
Ooh-ha. I knew it. I knew the second you said that you were going to do that.
But
Finding Nemo is my favorite movie. I will come defend that in a second. So with Shark Week, we're going to be doing things like Jaws 1 through 4, and also like Shark Tale.
Mm-hmm.
So
we might just focus on Jaws. Shark Tale might be a bit much. We'll find out. We'll find out what happens. We'll do 8 videos all in one day.
Yeah, we will. To make up for the 16 that we have missed.
Yes. Which hopefully we'll get back into our schedule of doing this recording every Tuesday and uploading Thursday, Friday, something like that.
You just got real scared. I saw your eyes.
No, that was I don't know when this is gonna come out, but all I know is that it's a Tuesday and it's 10 o'clock.
Don't forget to check out the Worst Generations channel and see the Elon Musk video that was just dropped. It's really good.
Random reviewer is in it.
For like 2 seconds. I do have the best line, though.
You do have the best line.
And I improv'd it because I'm amazing.
Yes. Anyways, subscribe, like, ring the bell. Is that the thing?
Yeah.
Cool.
Leave us a comment. Share this video with your friends. And we'll see you next week. Bye!